2025 SEC schedules have been released. Now, we don't know exact dates of everything yet, but we know who's playing who. And I'm going to throw this thing up on to the screen here, and I'm actually going to go full screen, and we'll kind of talk through this stuff. And look, I did not go through every single one of these because I wanted my reaction to be genuine as to what each of these teams is going to be going through in 2025. And I know you're saying, Mark, man, we hadn't even went through 2024 yet. Let's do that first. Okay. I get you. But this is news right here, folks. People plan years in advance for these trips, especially in the SEC, man. There are people that travel long ways to go and check these games out. And I would like to think in 2025 that Mason and I will be going and maybe checking out some of these games. Right, Mason?
Yeah, absolutely. There's quite a few on this list that I would like to see, including several in our own backyard that we'll get to here in a minute.
Yeah, let's just kind of start here. We'll just start. These are in alphabetical order, so we'll start with Alabama. Home games for 2025. LSU, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Vandy. So the Vandy is kind of a stinky one, and you got 4 home games there. The SEC stays with the 8-game schedule. What I really wish the SEC would just go on to 9 games, don't you? Because now I feel like we're not turning enough of these opponents over quick enough, or maybe we're turning them over too quick, and we're not keeping some of the rivalries that we need to keep around. What's your thoughts on that? Where the SEC puts out another 8-game conference schedule?
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of interesting, how we already know what the matchups are going to look like for 2025, but we don't know the dates. I don't know. Everything's so unsettled as it is. It feels kind of weird. Like the timing's really weird for this. It is exciting. I mean, it's exciting to see this stuff, but also one thing that I noticed with a lot of these games is it seems like we're just getting like the same schedule we got that we're going to have in 2024, but the home games and away games just flipped. I don't know if you noticed that, but it seems a lot like that. Like for Georgia, for example, I noticed they get Alabama, Ole Miss, and Texas at home. Well, they're facing all of them on the road this year.
Right.
I don't know. It seems a little bit simple to me. Maybe they're trying to go with that sort of model where it's like a home and home schedule essentially for 8 games in the SEC. Also, I'm kind of disappointed that we're not seeing a nine game SEC schedule. That's one that I'm really looking forward to at some point, hopefully. But also maybe that's a power move by the SEC to kind of go to ESPN and say, hey, we need more money if we're going to continue to have these talks about switching to a 9-game schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. Just looking through some of these, I mean, Ole Miss really gets off pretty easy on this thing, man, in my opinion. I mean, home games, Arkansas, Florida, LSU, South Carolina. There's only one game in there that I would be super worried about if I'm Ole Miss, right? On the road, you got Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi State, and Oklahoma. Ole Miss is set up, dude. Ole Miss is set up for the next couple of years to make this college football playoff. Don't you think?
We don't know in 2025. Jackson Dart's probably not going to be there, if I had to guess. I think he's probably gone, and several others. I don't know what this it's going to be a whole new team in 2025, I think. And Lane Kiffin kind of does this, right, where he gets a ton of transfer portal players. It's almost a new team every year, but he likes to have that consistency at quarterback. And they'll probably have a good quarterback. So I look at Florida and I say, is DJ Lagway playing in his second year pretty well? Are some of those pieces starting to click? Do they have the same head coach? Those are a lot of questions that I have. They've got a few players. They still ended up with a pretty good recruiting class this year. And I could see that being a little bit of a sneaky game, especially if Ole Miss is having a bounce back sort of year. If that game's played early, right, that could be really interesting.
Well,
But yeah,
yeah, well, I was just going to say, I mean, Ole Miss got Walker Howard from LSU.
mhm.
He'll probably be playing, if not him, then Austin Simmons, who is one of the most talented quarterbacks that they've had on the roster at Ole Miss ever, possibly. So I think that they're looking good at that position. And we've all kind of, I mean, Lane Kiffin is the portal king. I mean, he's the portal king. I can only anticipate at this point that he's going to continue to do what he's done the last few years, and that is bring tons of talent into the Ole Miss program. And the Grove Fund, the Grove Collective, is popping. That was a big point of contention between Ole Miss fans and Lane Kiffin last year. Was Lane coming out after games that they lost, which wasn't many, by the way, double-digit victories. We're going to talk more Ole Miss football here in just a bit. But it was, if you want to go beat those guys that are at the top of the mountain, you're going to have to put the money into the fund. And if you do that, we'll go get the guys, and we'll go play on the mountaintop for the mountaintop.
Yeah.
And it seems like everybody's buying into that. And with that being the case, I can't help but think Ole Miss is going to be just fine as long as they can hold on to Lane Kiffin. When you're talking 2 years in the future in college football, I mean, you never know what can happen. Lane Kiffin could be coaching the Florida Gators in 2025. Okay,
Yep.
I mean, it is supremely possible, and I know Ole Miss fans would not be happy to hear that, but it is very, very possible. Somebody who I think has got a really, really tough schedule on this thing, and we know that too because of what you said, that these are kind of mirror images of these schedules of 24 and 25, is the Florida Gators. Florida Gators are hosting, and that which the Georgia game is a neutral site game, but they've got Georgia, Mississippi State, there's a win, Tennessee at home, and Texas at home, and then Kentucky, LSU, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M on the road. So very, very difficult schedule there for the Florida Gators in 25. I don't like that very much because you talked about DJ Lagway at Florida. Yes, if Florida is looking to get where they want to go, he has to be playing. He has to be playing well by 2025. But then he has to go play against these teams, I don't have some kind of just amazing outlook on the growth of the Florida football team. Are you? I just, man, that is really, really tough draw between 24 and 25 with those schedules for the Gators.
Yeah, I don't, especially because, you're looking at this year, right? They didn't want to pull the trigger on Billy Napier yet. Who, by the way, I'm hearing like more rumblings that like he's been dealt a bad hand at Florida, which I already knew. But people are saying, I'm hearing more people talking about Billy Napier around the program and saying like this guy's actually pretty good. Like they don't want to say it out loud, it seems like, but behind closed doors, they're like, dang, I really like this guy. Like he's pretty dang good, right? He's respected among other coaches. So if he's able to figure it out, look, Graham Mertz wasn't a bad quarterback last year. I know people are talking about DJ Lagway starting right away. Graham Mertz was a pretty dang good quarterback. He wasn't the issue. So if they can figure out the offensive line, get some pieces around him, maybe they go bowling this year and Billy Napier keeps his job. If that happens, I think that's the best case scenario for Florida because it means Billy Napier is doing a good job. And it means that the program is headed in the right direction for 2025 and another tough schedule.
Yeah, and they've had 3 losing seasons in a row, so patience has to be growing thin. I mean, if Florida really needs to go bowling this year, man, and I just don't see there's any way possible that they're going to do it. And by this year, I mean 24. They really need to go bowling, and I just don't know if they can do it. Kind of going to that bottom row there, looking at Missouri, going to host Alabama, host Mississippi State, South Carolina, and Texas A&M, and then going to go on the road at Arkansas, at Auburn, at Oklahoma, at Vanderbilt. That's going to be That's going to be a pretty tough schedule for the Missouri Tigers. And I'm going to tell you why. This is going to be a brand new offense in 2025. Cook's going to be gone. I guess Luther Burden may still be there, or would that be his fourth?
He'll be gone. He'll be going this year.
This will be his third year this year.
This will be his third year, yeah.
So he'll be gone. And why would he stay to play with another quarterback that he's never played with before?
No, he's not.
Yeah, he's going to be gone. I think a lot of that offensive line is going to be gone. There's going to be some. I think they'll still have a pretty good defense, but that's a tough schedule there. How about the Oklahoma Sooners?
So go real quick. So with Missouri though, if you had the same team that you got out of last year and that you're pretty much going to have this year, you look at that schedule and say this is a really easy schedule, right? If it wasn't for the fact that they're going to be kind of implementing a whole new offense, at least, you would look at that schedule and say this is one of the easier schedules, right? I mean, just if you go down through all of these schedules and considering Missouri is a pretty good team nowadays, that's a pretty easy schedule. Like when you really break it down, Alabama, I mean, as far as, like big programs, you don't get Georgia, you don't get Texas, you don't get Ole Miss, right? There's no LSU on this schedule. There's a lot of things to like, not even a Tennessee. You know what I mean? Like there are a lot of as it stands now, right? Not projecting into 2025. I think if you look at the schedule, you'd say this is a really easy schedule. But we know that Texas A&M is probably going to look a whole lot different by then.
Yeah.
We know Auburn's probably going to look a whole lot different by then. Oklahoma is probably going to have a really good year. They're set up pretty well for 2025. So, and then a down year for Missouri. Yeah, it could be really interesting. So pay attention to how you look at these schedules, because what you see isn't always what you're going to get. Right. I guess is the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah. And who's to say that Missouri doesn't hit up the transfer portal, before this 2025 season and snatch up a quarterback who's already cut his teeth on another offense? I mean, you don't know, but just judging by that, by what we know about these teams right now, I agree with you. Texas A&M should be a lot better. The outlook on that team is going to be a lot different, as it will be with a lot of the teams on that schedule by the time 2025 rolls around. Let's look at the Oklahoma Sooners. Going to host Auburn, LSU, Ole Miss, and Missouri, and then going to go on the road at Alabama, at South Carolina, at Tennessee, and Texas, which is going to be a neutral site game. That is a very tough schedule, in my opinion. At Alabama, at Tennessee, Texas, at a neutral site, and then hosting, I think Auburn is going to be a lot better in 25. I would just assume. LSU, going to be pretty daggum good. Got a hell of a quarterback coming in. I can't remember that kid's name, but he's a 25 quarterback. He's the number one player in the country, I think. Very, 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 very talented. I think LSU is going to be tough to deal with. Ole Miss, we've talked about, that could be possibly a whole new team. So maybe you catch Ole Miss on the right year, and Missouri possibly. So maybe a couple of you get off the hook on a couple of those there. What do you think about the Sooners?
I mean, again, I think that this is going to be a pretty good year for them as far as what they're looking like. Yeah. Tennessee is another team that I'm looking at for 2025 and saying that's going to be a really good team. Texas ought to be really good, right? Alabama at that point is going to be really good. We don't know what we're going to get out of Ole Miss. We don't know what we're going to get out of Missouri. I think Auburn is going to be excellent. And LSU, I would still put a question mark by them. So yeah, this is a really tough schedule for Oklahoma Sooners. If they're able to get through this gauntlet and win the SEC with this kind of schedule, that they're the best team in the country. I mean, this is a really tough schedule for them.
Yeah, let's kind of quickly go through a couple of more of these, and then we'll kind of close out the show with our Kentucky and Ole Miss spring previews, just mini team previews that we've been doing, looking at the schedule coming up for those two teams. It's been a lot of fun, and we're just about done with the SEC doing that, so we got that coming up shortly. The Tennessee Vols in 2025 are going to host Arkansas, Georgia, Oklahoma, and Vandy, and then go on the road to Alabama, Florida, Kentucky, and Mississippi State. Not bad. Not a hosting Oklahoma instead of visiting there. I think is a big deal. Hosting Georgia instead of visiting there is obviously a big deal. The Alabama game, that's a rivalry game. That's always going to be tough for Tennessee to go to Alabama and win that one. But Florida, Mississippi State, easy wins. Kentucky and Tennessee tend to have their fits. Overall, I think it's just kind of an average SEC schedule for Tennessee, if there is such a thing, Mason. I think it's pretty doable, and you got to think in the third year of Nico that this is prime time for Tennessee to step up and possibly win the SEC. If not, then win, right?
Oh yeah,
that's what Tennessee fans got to be saying by looking at this in 2025. If not 2025, when is it our time?
Yeah, I mean, Georgia's going to be breaking in a new quarterback in 2025. Yep. So, really, I mean, you look at the rest of the schedule and you say, other than Alabama, right? We should have just as good a chance between Alabama and Georgia, right? Outside of those games, we should have just as good a chance to win those games as our opponents do, if not better. So that doesn't mean I'm not saying they should win every game, but I'm saying it's at least like close to 50-50 on every other game. So, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. They should be looking at that and saying, we've got to go to the playoffs at the very least. If not, winning the SEC and winning a national championship, with the best quarterback that they've had in several years, probably since Dobbs.
Yeah.
Hooker was pretty good though.
Hooker was really good, just a beneficiary of the Josh Heupel offense, but that's neither here nor there. The dude was awesome. I mean, statistically, he was just on it, and it was heartbreaking seeing him get hurt in that South Carolina game. But I think he had thrown 33 touchdowns and 3 interceptions at that point in the season. I mean, it was pretty freaking remarkable what was going on there. But he was also the beneficiary of having 2 NFL wide receivers as well to chunk the ball down the field to. I'll never forget that Tennessee Alabama game that year. Jalen Hyatt just kept getting behind that Alabama defense, and Nick Saban was having fits, yelling at Pete Golden on the sideline. I'll never forget it. The Texas Longhorns going to host Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and Vandy. So you got Vanderbilt and Arkansas on the home slate there. A couple of easy games. That sucks for Texas fans. Sometimes as an SEC fan, you get that draw, right? And as a fan, you're thinking, wow, that's nice. We got a couple of easy dubs, that's good for getting through the middle of the season or whatnot. But then you look at it and you're like, shit, that's our home games. So now I'm losing a really good home game to have to go watch Vanderbilt, which Arkansas is not a horrible team. They're not as bad as Vanderbilt, obviously, but Arkansas is still, I wouldn't think a name that you're paying $500 a ticket for to go sit in the stadium. But nonetheless, pretty easy home slate there. Texas A&M and Texas, that's going to be a great rivalry game. I think those games are going to be coin flips every year. And then you're going to go on the road at Florida, at Georgia, Kentucky, and Mississippi State. So, again, a couple of easier games of Mississippi State and Florida, I think, and a tough one at Georgia. We mentioned it just a few minutes ago. Georgia will be breaking in a new quarterback and essentially a new offense around that quarterback. I think if you're going to draw Georgia in a certain year, I think that maybe that's the year to do it in recent history anyway. What do you think about this Texas schedule?
Hey, those Texas fans, they might as well get used to using some of that oil money and coming to visit some other stadiums, right? Some good SEC football stadiums to see stadiums that are on par with theirs, right? In the Big 12, they don't have that outside of Oklahoma for the most part. Not saying that there's not good pageantry in those stadiums. There is. I'm just talking
No. You said the Big 12 sucks and you hate it.
Don't drag me down with you. All right. But that's what the SEC is all about: being able to go visit other venues, seeing what the fans are like there, and all that. Look, the Swamp in Gainesville. I'm a Georgia fan, right? It's my team's rivals. That's a fun stadium to go to. It's a very unique setup, and how you can literally go from bar hopping, right, and going all the way down the strip, and then you walk into the top of the stadium and go down and find your seat, from the road. It's pretty
Every
cool.
time you talk about it, I think about you ripping out of an alligator costume.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I did.
Dude, we got to find that picture. We got to show the First and Long fans what a real college football fan looks like. Because me and Mason, let me tell you, folks, and we're on a live show, so we can say whatever we want right now. We're chilling, but dude, we have tore up some damn college football venues. Okay, a lot of neutral sites, a lot of Georgia games in Athens, but more than any, the Georgia Florida game in Jacksonville. And man, we've had some damn good times. Like I know a lot of you have, but Mason's got some cool memories over there at the Florida Gator Stadium. But sorry to interrupt you. That every time you talk about it, I think about you ripping out of an alligator costume and your Georgia shirt being exposed like you're super Georgia man.
That's pretty much what I was going for the whole time.
I think Cam Newton was real popular back then too.
Yeah.
So it's like
that's what it was. I was pulling the cam, little cam. Hey, maybe we'll tie one off at another game here in the near future, and invite our First and Long fans with us, and do like a live show, with us tailgating.
Hell yeah, I'll kick y'all's ass in cornhole. What's up?
It's a terrible idea, but we might do it. We're just crazy enough to do it. So
it sounds so bad, we might just do it.
Right. Exactly. Anyway, but the schedule, I mean, it is what it is, right? It's the inverse of what it was last year, like every other schedule on here, which is rather disappointing. But you're gonna have to travel. Like, go to Athens, right? If you're a Texas fan, go to Athens. Maybe go to Starkville. I don't know. I haven't been to Starkville. I don't. I mean, I'm not saying it like I'm sure it's a really fun stadium, but with the cowbells, like I don't know if I could handle the cowbells. I really don't. Take some Excedrin before you get in. Be prepared. Take some earmuffs.
I hear that you get to that stadium and then you're like, you can't believe the legal obligation that Mississippi State has put themselves up against by allowing a bunch of drunk fans to come in with a metal weapon.
Right.
I mean, it's a little intimidating. It's got to be, right?
Yeah.
I mean, dude, you say one thing, you're cracked over the back of the head with about 14 cowbells. Welcome to the SEC, mofo.
Yeah. You don't need more cowbell. You do not need more cowbell. Right.
No. I don't think you're going to be wanting more cowbell. Let's talk about Texas A&M real quick, and we'll close this segment out. Texas A&M Aggies going to host Auburn, Florida, Mississippi State, and South Carolina, and then going to go on the road to Arkansas, to LSU, Missouri, and Texas. All those last four on the road. LSU, Missouri, Texas. We don't know what Missouri's going to be, but LSU and Texas game I anticipate being pretty tough. That'll be an Arch Manning quarterback Texas team there. We haven't mentioned that going through this preview yet, but saw some footage of old Archie boy throwing the football around, and he looked pretty damn good. Now, he wasn't playing against the defense. He didn't have a rusher, 320-pound defensive tackle in his face, or getting smashed in the ground like a bug. But all in all, the ball was coming out of his hand really good, and he looked the part to me. Texas A&M, I anticipate, will be a completely different team by the time 2025 rolls around. But I think they have a chance to make 2024 a decent season. Who's to say that in 2025 they can't make the college football playoff? What say you?
Yeah, I completely agree. Especially if they can get Connor Wakeman to agree to another year. I think he'll probably need it since he hasn't had a full year at quarterback yet. I'm really interested to see what Texas A&M looks like in 2025. Next year, for the next 2 years, right? Let's just go ahead and say Texas A&M is going to be one to watch. I think that they're going to finally put it together under Mike Elko, and it's Yeah, I mean, you said it. They could definitely make the college football playoff at the very least. With this team, they have the talent still to make a run at a national championship. And I'm not speaking hyperbolically. Like they legitimately have that type of talent on the roster. They have not produced yet, and I think that they finally have the coaching staff in place to do that. Let's see if they can sustain who they have in those places and in those coaching positions, and sustain their roster and continue to grow their roster as well.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely, absolutely. Texas A&M, I've got high hopes for them, and I've been going back and forth with some Texas A&M fans on the channel and everything, and I think everybody feels really, really good about the Texas A&M Aggies and where they're going with the leadership of Mike Elko. This is the right guy for the job, in my opinion.
Hey, I've got one more thing on this before we move on.
Yeah.
So I did look at this year's schedule, right? And I saw it was, the SEC released a similar format to what you just had on the screen. This isn't a complete like inverse of last year, like for every single schedule, which tells me the more I think about it that the SEC is probably doing this intentionally because that's kind of lame, right?
Right.
I mean, I get that it's fair, in a sense of, hey, we had to play y'all at y'all's site. Now you need to play us at our site. I get the fairness of it, but it's really lame, right?
Yeah.
It's not exciting. If this is what they're proposing, and every 2 years you'll see something similar to this, I don't really care for that. That doesn't get me going for the most part. So
Yeah.
perhaps this is the SEC saying, ESPN, we're going to put your feet to the fire. If you don't want a lame product, if you don't want to show the same games that you showed the year before, essentially just at a different site, then we need you to change the plan up so that we can go to a 9-game schedule. Because I think that's ultimately what the SEC wants. So it gives them a little bit of leverage to say, oh, you don't like the schedule? Well, let's go to a 9-game schedule, and then we can completely change everything.
Yeah.
So maybe that's kind of the idea there, and sort of the power struggle between the SEC and ESPN.
Well, and you're exactly right because I mean, just speaking from a Georgia fan's perspective, I am a UGA fan, as you can see. Whenever those Alabama games would be scheduled, 8 years out or whatever, dude, we were counting down. We were, I mean, no joke, as crazy as it sounds, as Georgia fans, we're like talking about that Alabama game coming for 4, 5, 6 years, right?
Yeah.
So it is odd that the SEC keeps putting out these one-off schedules, and we're not doing any planning for the future. And it's understandable because we live in the age of realignment, and I get that. And and it's probably got something to do too with what you're talking about. Everything is about leverage and how they can get more money or power or say so, and that is exactly what's going on. It's more prevalent today than it's ever been.